feature called Mercado.
Recording is on.
All right. Apparently now we're recording, so you guys get the third intro. Welcome to the Galoy project call number 4. We have Prem from Bitcoin Jungle, who is going to be walking us through a really interesting feature called Mercado. And so for those who don't know, Bitcoin Jungle is built on top of the open source Galoy Bitcoin banking platform. And they have been onboarding merchants in Costa Rica for a few months now, getting a lot of traction over there, and the team has been contributing back to the repos, and this is a potential update that they're looking into. And to my understanding, Prem, I'll let you kind of introduce yourself and take it away in a second. But to my understanding, this is in an early phase, and they're looking for feedback and input before they move into building anything.
Yes, thanks, Andrew. And that's exactly right. So we've been talking about and hashing this idea for a bit. If any of you have actually used the Galoy mobile wallet, be it Bitcoin Beach or Bitcoin Jungle or any of the other instances that are also popping up, one thing you may have already noticed is that there is a maps feature out there, but its functionality is rather limited. So what it currently does is, through a WhatsApp message or through some other async comm, you can send the admin some locations, and then we basically add those pins in and label those pins as to which merchant is where. So it's very limited and does allow for a little bit of discoverability, but not much interaction beyond that. So what we want to build is a way for first of all, for anyone accepting Bitcoin to very easily advertise their stores, their wares, and second of all, allow very easy discovery of that. So as such, at that point we become a content management system as well. So that will require some sort of whether how we manage the listings that come in and make sure that it's a little bit regulated so that the content is appropriate. So there's three basically workflows that I'll cover over here. Two of them are on the mobile side, and then there's the admin dashboard as well. There's a lot of pieces to cover, but there's a lot of added functionality that will come on top of this. This is just the V0 that we're talking about. So as I go through this, I'll also talk about some of the future pieces that we've thought of. And then there are a lot of unknowns that we want to actually raise to the community on how to solve for these problems. I see that John Carvalho is here. Maybe we could use some tooling from within Synonym for some of these pieces. But those are just open questions that I want to raise out. There's a lot of unknowns here. So unless anyone has questions, I'm going to just start going over the flows here.
Quick question. Who are you signed in as on Figma so that I might just follow you?
I just realized I'm not even signed in. So.
Oh, okay. No worries. But I know that a few of us are in the Figma. So if we're able to follow or maybe you're one of the anonymous. Let's see. Oh, there's Prem. Okay, so anybody, if you follow Prem, you should be able to just stick along with his cursor. Thanks.
So the first flow that we want to allow is like really easy searching on. Well, let's talk about registering the user first, right? As soon as you come in, when you click on the marketplace, we'll ask you to whether you want to search or post something. And let's say you want to post something. At that point, we'll reach out to you and ask you for your category, where these are not properly. So these have been moved around. Actually, this is what you should be starting with. Sorry about that. So we ask you what particular category you do you want to create a post or do you want to search for something? And once that is done, we basically walk you through a flow. The first thing would be, hey, what's the name of your store? What particular category you want, and any description. For category, we'll have some pre-selected
Recording is on.
Pre-selected items in there, and also, yeah, that's pretty much it. So when you go through that workflow, we basically ask you to upload an image. You can skip through a lot of these steps. Some of this is optional and some of this is required. We ask for a location after you've uploaded the images. We'll ask for a location, and this would be basically putting in a pin, because if you've ever visited Costa Rica or lived there, you know that addresses are pretty much non-existent. So we want to make it compatible to other geographies, which would mean that we just basically ask for a location pin, and that can be derived by them just selecting a pin like they do in WhatsApp or other apps right now. Once we have that information, we then ask for how do you want others to contact you for these postings. So, in the Bitcoin Beach wallet, we basically do sign you up using your phone numbers, where we send you an OTP. So you could just use that, and or you could ask for a new phone number or an email. If it's a new one, then we'll make you go through a verification, again, an OTP verification token. And once that is done, you basically are at a screen where you can submit your posting to us. So fairly straightforward, not much to it over here. If anyone has any questions so far, if not, I can move on to the next flow. So after that's done, let me just cover the Bitcoin dashboard. Again, fairly straightforward. This will allow us to see all the postings that are over there, view the content, and then either approve it or disapprove it. Both will send a notification to the user that the posting has been either approved or disapproved. This is the next piece. As a user, you basically click on the maps right now, and you'll be able to see all the postings that are over there, and then you can filter them out based on either categories or keywords, or even distance from you. So that's what this was for over here. This should actually be part of this flow right here. So this will allow you to then drill down the search further. Any posting that shows up based on the keywords, you can again select categories from here too. But once you have the posting from here, we'll allow for a contact, and the contact is the missing piece, or the unknown, that I really want to talk about. Like, how do we want to allow that? But before I raise that question, let me just tell you some of the future plans that we have for this. The idea would be that we'll allow a lot of gamification in this. If you've seen the Earn tab, there's some gamification built in there, and you can, earn sats. The idea would be that if you push a posting out there, maybe we'll charge a sat here, 10 sats there, based on the category you want. And then also when you start contacting people, again, two-way purpose, right? We avoid any spam. So we'll collect a sat here, a sat there, for allowing for that contact to happen as well. So the next step is like, how would that contact initiation really work? Will it be some sort of an in-app message, or will it be through some other band? Those are open questions that we still have and we want to cover up. Will it, should we integrate something like a Sphinx chat, which will provide end-to-end encryption, or some of the tool out there?
I'll direct attention. Patricia had a comment asking like what type of feedback is most helpful. Maybe Prem, if you wanted to talk about that, like in terms of where you are and what areas folks can focus on in terms of their feedback at this point.
So that would be a good point where I just stopped. Is how should this contact happen between a user and someone that's listed a posting? That's one question, open question we have. Go ahead, Manu.
Love the concept. Just first thoughts that come to mind here for me is obviously Google Maps, right? If I look for a restaurant, whatever, I might go there now in the fiat world, right? So the first thing that comes to mind, I just quickly brain dump this is, okay, this is rebuilding this in a specific client, which is feels pretty closed loop from the experience. But is there a point where this jumps out? For example, communication, right? Let me make an example. I go to a restaurant site, right? The owner of the restaurant decides how I want to contact him. There might be an open table, there might be a call, a phone number, there might be an email. Should that really be part of the design here? It's just an open question, right? To limit also the communication pipeline, right? It's already a Google Maps inside a different app, right? Theoretically, is it okay to have jump-off points? So that would be maybe just one thought here on communication. That was an accident.
That's a great point. So perhaps we could offer, when the posting is happening, the choice to the user whether they want to remain anonymous or whether they want to publish a way for others to contact them. And if it's anonymous, then it'll happen through some sort of an how Craigslist does it or Apple ID does it. Basically, some sort of a one-time generated identifier that basically sends the message out. That will increase this complexity of how we handle the messaging, but it could offer the anonymity which I feel people will want. So that's one thought that needs to be considered. The other big piece over here is we don't want to just restrict this to merchants. The idea is that anyone should be able to sell anything they want. And I'll use the analogy of Craigslist or even now Facebook Marketplace, which is like, if I have a car, but I'm not really a merchant, I should be able to just go ahead and post that out here and then, get that. So it was just becoming too wieldy as a first version. So we took that out. But the idea is that, we'll allow one-time postings. And then the concept would be how long do you want to limit those postings in here so that they don't become stale. So for that, we'll have to give consideration to something like that. Is it open for 30 days and then you renew it for another 30 days or something like that?
Couple comments in the on the left-hand side. Not sure if privacy should be a concern here. At the end, merchants want more customers, so they're not trying to hide some info. And then Patricia, I'll mention the obvious, but just watch out with selling anything. Remember Silk Road.
Correct. So
whole point.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole reason why we have an admin dashboard. Every posting does not directly enter the system. It has to go through an approval process for that reason. Now, because these are, at the end of the day, centralized apps, and we do want to, we will be responsible for the content that's here because we sign that agreement with both App Store and Google Play when we publish our apps. Did someone ask? This is custodial. So it's a centralized app, right? It's the app is. This has nothing to do with the wallet functionality itself. This is just a way to provide content from within the app itself. It does use the custodial features of the wallet, which would mean that we'd allow funds to be taken out, like Satoshi is decremented from your balance if you have a posting. If you want to give someone a review, let's say, we'll add reviews over here too, by the way. So something like existing similar platforms in the fiat world do basically allow people to leave reviews for each other. Personally, one of the biggest marketplaces I see for this is buying and selling fiat and Bitcoin. So it kind of exchange networks. So they'd need some sort of a review mechanism for this. Does that answer the question? Who asked? Like, is this custodial? No, nothing. No, we're not. So, in the markets we're working on, there are no regulations per se for something like this. So think of it as like a local Bitcoins. If you were to do something in Germany or US, there are issues, but not in Costa Rica or El Salvador or many of the other places where we'd have this. And because each instance would have its own dashboard, they'd be responsible for what kind of content they allow and don't allow. So everything from categories can be configured. The kind of workflows you want eventually could be configured. I suspect. That's how we'd see it. So each instance would be kind of responsible for itself.
I think Nicholas has his hand raised.
Yep, go ahead, Nicholas.
Yeah, I'm curious. Is the intent to monetize this platform by, if you want to add a posting, you have to pay 5 sats or 50 sats, or and also for comment. I mean, because I guess one of the challenge of fiat platform like this is the fact that it's free to post any content. Those platform might not want to say that you need to pay 50 cents to add your car listing or something like that. So is it part of the thinking or not necessarily?
So the idea is for it to be monetizable, but again, it would be configurable based on each instance. Bitcoin Jungle could have different rules than Bitcoin Beach, say. And then it could be granular, like for certain categories, you can allow for 10 cents, 10 Satoshis. For certain categories, just 1 Satoshi. See, and I'll segue into this fairly quickly, is these are some internal conversations we're having within Bitcoin Jungle too. Like, if we want to see instances of Bitcoin Beach or Galoy wallet to just spring up, we have to offer incentive mechanisms to the people running those instances or managing those instances or creating those instances, right? If those incentives are aligned, then that will offer a great vehicle for people to just spin up more of these Gala mobile instances. And this is one of the tooling that I feel like will help in that direction. But if you don't want to make it monetizable, again, your choice. Each instance will have its own configurations on how it wants it, and each market will be different, I suspect, and on how they want to do it. Patricia, you asked the question, who can download and use this wallet? So because it's a custodial wallet, it's not available in certain jurisdictions and markets. You will not find Bitcoin Jungle in the US App Store anymore. Neither is China or Russia for different reasons. But correct. That's exactly right, Kamal. So, it is available in most jurisdictions, but you will not find it in the US one. Did I answer your question, Nicholas? I want to make sure.
Yeah.
Hey, Prem. Christoph here. I had a question around this, because one thing I'm curious if paying a small amount of sats is also a good way to prevent spam.
Absolutely.
I think that's what you get on a tons of these free platforms. They basically need to have 1,000-person team just to prevent spam, because like Twitter is an example there, right?
Exactly.
But if something costs just such a small amount that it's just a little painful if you want to do this 1,000 times. So you don't do it. But then, I mean, I don't know if that adds up to any meaningful revenue to incentivize people to run this platform. But I don't know. Is this something you've discussed, or do you have thoughts on what that threshold could even be?
I think the market will eventually decide that. I think if we put the tooling out there, and it's out there, we'll be able to gauge whether it provides any sustainable way to actually run your instances. I don't know the complete answer to that, but this is just one of the tools we're thinking through, right? This isn't the only mechanism through which you want to be able to monetize the wallet, but this will definitely be one of the ways to do so. And you're exactly right that it has a dual purpose, and the other is that it avoids all the spam, which many of the other free systems have to deal with, and spend a significant amount of resources, which I think we'll be able to prevent. And that spam threshold, maybe it's easy for someone to just have a one sat. They don't mind just pushing a sat all the time and flood the system. And we can decide what those thresholds would be based on how the activity looks like. Go ahead, Manu. Did you have a question?
Yeah, and I just had a point as we're talking about monetization, because I think what we've been talking about so far is circular things, which I think makes a lot of sense. Just to put it out there, there's also, I mean, you talked about it, it's kind of a content management system. Then you added even that there might be a reputation system based on ratings, right? Might be a lot of work for the individual, and there needs to be incentivization for that. The outside world, I mean, let's say pay per API call or whatever, could also be something here maybe to think about, because if you think about you're curating extremely detailed information about local merchants, about their performance over time, about their ratings, about all this kind of stuff, right? And this could be interesting for other apps, for other services out there as well, right? Let's say you have an aggregator which takes all merchants all over the world and brings them together, but they need high quality data there. So there could be value in this content management system to the outside world, not just the circular economy in the inside.
So that's a great point and segue into two more things I wanted to talk about. Thanks for that, Manu. In one of the earlier calls when we first broached this idea, actually Nicholas told us about this. One way we could, so there's two things which I hope will come over time, is that there will be some sort of a federation of this content. So you could be using a Bitcoin Beach wallet and you visit Costa Rica. You could change your location, and then all of a sudden you can see the local stores that are available over there, and local listings in that area based on where you are. And those will be done from behind the scenes, GraphQL to GraphQL. That was one idea that was posted. So, and how this federation will work between instances, we'll have to work out the technical underpinnings of that. The other was something that actually Lee brought up to me, was that we could also have some sort of a Albi type of instance, get Albi. It's a Chrome extension, and which provides aggregation overall for all these markets out there. And that would allow you to somehow interact with it. I mean, this is an idea that I've been toying over the last week, so it's not even completely baked in my mind. But those are the other two things we have.
Wow, baby.
Go ahead. Jose, do you want to say something?
Sorry about that. I thought I was muted.
Oh, no worries.
And one more question on this. I see dollar symbols, dollar signs, like here, Lizard King Cafe, 50 $50. I was curious why they're dollars, and also what the tie-in is. Can I sell a product here? Can the restaurant add a menu? Can I pay directly through the wallet potentially?
Great
Basically, could the wallet serve as a point of sale?
So that's also a great question, Christoph. We really cut down the scope because we were heading down in that direction. And one thing that we ask you is category. Which category are you in? Based on that category, different metadata becomes available to you. So if you're a restaurant, we'd allow you to upload a menu or something like that, or what your working hours are. If you're an exchange provider, we'd ask a totally different set of questions. Of course, this is only a Bitcoin only ecosystem, but we're not asking you about other coins that you may want to trade. But we may ask you, like, what kind of exchange rates are you providing the service for? So, I mean, depending on what category you choose, you'd get a different set of questions, and then based on that metadata, we'd curate it differently. And as far as the dollar, that's just there as a placeholder. Just like the Bitcoin Beach wallet instance, you can choose your own currency, and that's what gets displayed over here, local to you. I mean, you could not even choose a fiat currency, right? You could basically choose Bitcoin if you wanted to denominate it in Bitcoin or Satoshis. I don't see any reason why you couldn't do that. After this, and right now we're still talking about the physical world, right? The brick and mortar stores. There is a whole together another marketplace for digital goods and services, which you may not need to be in physical presence of, and they might have totally different kinds of workflows, and eventually I see streaming services incorporated into the marketplace itself. Today, I was talking to Govinda, who's one of the leaders here in Costa Rica, who's helping out with Bitcoin Jungle, and he said there could be events possibly in something like this as well. So, definitely it would grow and mature over time, I suspect, so that it can handle more and more use cases. But the V0 would be the simpler one. We really had to cut this down significantly because we were making it too complicated for our own good.
It's really awesome. One small comment, and I added it on the board, but I wanted to share maybe a bit of a half-baked thought, is that when you get into like the merchant screen, so I'm looking at the burger shop or something like that, the ability to say pay this merchant is like a piece of the functionality that exists today, but it really makes me think about, we've been talking about merchant experience a lot, like both from the server or person at the POS, as well as the customer experience in spending sats. And there could be something interesting in exploring the interaction of say you're at Burger Mall and you're ready to check out, like how you have, if you're both using Bitcoin Jungle, can the merchant like push you an invoice into your app or something like that? Like, and like, is there like bi-directional, or like how few clicks could we make that exchange be? So, and then the other idea there is favoriting and things like that of kind of like the places that you frequent and things like that. So just a random idea, something maybe to think about. And it kind of ties back to something I think Manu was talking about earlier, which is maybe we can build some user flows that like show the dividing line in terms of when you're in the app versus when you hop out to something else, like a chat or something like that. Because there are, like you said, Prem, there's definitely a need to scale back, but it's really interesting to think about the potential of services that could happen within this tool and ecosystem.
That's an absolutely great point. And Andrew, I think that in the very first instance, at least we could add the ability for them to pay, like, when merchants add up, one of the things we could add is, do you want to add up over here? Because we have that information as a user, we can add your LN URL right in here for you. And because we have that LN URL, we could provide the ability to pay, if not directly, bidirectionally through an invoice, which may be a little more work, but from the get-go, just, do you want to pay to this merchant, and here's their LN URL. Something like that would be fairly easy to bake in the very first version itself, I suspect.
Yeah, and I hadn't been thinking about this until now. But when I was in El Zante, I was asking people, like, "What's your username in Bitcoin Beach Wallet?" And to tip people and things like that. And so if there's something in terms of that interaction, that point of sale interaction, it's just worth exploring. And I know that you guys worked on NFC as well, so I'm just excited to see how this can all come together at the point of sale in as few clicks, as few seconds as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So, right now in our wallets, we don't require for the users to have a username, right? And I'm wondering if, as part of this, you said, do you want to add a username, and that would allow us to then generate your LN URLs for you. Definitely something to think about, and how we can make it as easy as possible for them to just, in the app itself, not just discover, but then pay to. And I suspect it would be easier for us, since at the end of the day, we are a wallet app. John S. did point a few things that I wanna cover over here. The first was NOSTR. Different people may be calling it differently, Noster, I don't know. And I've been looking at that project closely as well, and definitely a good candidate for allowing for that peer-to-peer communication, for sure. I don't know how easy or difficult it would be. It seems like it's a fairly lightweight communication mechanism, and there's a lot of people working on it, and maybe it'll be good enough for us to integrate that over here. But I don't know much about it, and I'd need other people's help to see if that's a possible contender for that. And the second question or comment you had was, add to contacts from Mercado via a button. Like, do you mean like access your contacts? Is that what you're referring to?
I was referring to the previous question about being able to push a payment to the merchant, like after the fact, like maybe if you're not present or something like that. I think that was the question previously. So I was just thinking if the contact list had like a bit more like details added, like metadata that you could add, then you can like click add to contacts, and one of the bits of metadata could be the link to the like the profile or the menu or something for that restaurant. So then it becomes kind of like your contacts could also include like your list of favorite pizza places or whatever else. Yeah.
Okay.
So you could easily like call them up and say, hey, can you deliver XYZ pizza to me and whatever, and then they'll say, yeah, can you just send a payment, and we'll do that, and then you'll like you have the Lightning address already there, so you'll just push that payment over to them, and they confirm whether they got it or not.
Okay. Yeah, definitely food for thought. And yeah, what John Carvalho was saying is mentioning over here too, about slash tags. So I am very strongly looking at that as well, or some of us are. we haven't played with it at all right now. So we wanna get our hands dirty with what Slashtags can do. I've been listening to some of these conversations and reading up on it, and it seems like it will help us tremendously, not just with this use case, but some of the other issues we're facing with dealing with 12 different protocols of payments, and all the problems. Like, it was one of the Galoy project calls that we had, right? Like, all the user experience with payments is just so hard, and in some cases incompatible, and that's where some of the solutions that Synonym is building could be very helpful. But in this case, yeah, I'd be very interested to see what Slashtags can do, and if it can solve some of these some problems for us, and how easy it is, right, to get it out there. So I hope we'll reach out to you in an async way to see if we can get some support with this if we need it. So yeah, we'll definitely be looking that as a candidate to build on top of. And John, do you have an idea on your timeline from about the RNlib and the SDK from Synonym for all this stuff, to see a stable version out there? Okay. Okay. I mean, a lot of these, I suspect a lot of these technical discussions would be dictated by the mothership. So, eventually I'd want, Bitcoin Beach or Galoy to tell us what is the best tech stack to kind of implement this, so that it kind of seamlessly fits in over there, because, we're hoping that it's going to be used not just by us, but upstream by Galoy, and then every downstream instance from there. So I hope to get more people from Galoy involved in the architecture early on in the coming weeks before we start writing some serious code.
And this, the way I think about it is, so there is some tool with GraphQL, some are called GraphQL stitching, where it will be possible to have like a microservices dedicated to this. That will be independent from the microservices that is doing the transaction part. And I guess by doing this, it will make this project fairly independent of the rest, which I think will be key, because, of course, integrating this for people implementing the Galoy stack is great, but if there is also some other wallet, independent of the Galoy stack that could benefit from this, it will be awesome. And by doing this type of GraphQL stitching and independent microservice, it would allow really like something that will work very well together on a wallet, but also allow the wallet to integrate it. Because I think this use case is very well suited for what we do, like community bank, and also local economy using Bitcoin. But I would think that maybe we're not the only ones that will benefit from this. So it's something that is on my mind also.
I'll look into the GraphQL stitching.
Yeah, and this part I think we could do it. I think people on our team have experience with this, so we could when we have some bandwidth, basically the way we are already been thinking about it is that the current map that is in Bitcoin Jungle and in Bitcoin Beach Wallet is it's a very separate use case, the map, from the rest of the app, right? Because the rest of the app is really a transaction wallet, right? It's like you pay over Lightning, you pay on-chain, you pay Interledger. And there is really, for this part of the code and something like a map, today they belong in the same code base, but we think that the map is really a marketing / beginning of a marketplace. And it will make sense to be in another code base because it's very unrated. And like if you think about security within it, it makes sense to segregate the code base. And so what we could do, the first step is to start by we're moving the map from the main code base and creating a new repository with it. Start by doing the graphical stitching that we have in mind. Like this, it will be a blueprint to build the rest.
Okay. Okay, and I did want to plug in over here. I know that Suraj has joined the call. I want to make sure that he's mentioned here. He was the one who is, behind the scenes did a lot of this work. So I wanted to give him credit for that. And Arjun has joined as well, who will be basically leading the dev efforts for actually building this in the React side. So thank you guys.
It's very cool. I think we have a couple hands up. Nice. Suraj, and I'm sorry, I didn't get the other name, Prem?
Arjun.
Yeah, nice work. This is really exciting. And I think, as you could probably see from the call, there's a lot of wheels turning. Patricia, we haven't heard you speak, and I think you raised your hand. So if you wanted to chime in, and we've got a couple hands raised here.
I don't have a lot to add. I just want to say this is really good, and I'm glad you shared. I'm curious how we can play around with this. I don't know if we really addressed this in the chat. A few people were maybe wanting to do a test group, and I would be really interested in that personally. So if there's a way for me to download this and provide feedback or test, I would love to do that. If you guys want to do a subgroup.
Sure. So I mean, once we start building this out, I suspect this won't be a direct PR to the Bitcoin Beach instance, but a downstream instance, and then we can add you to we'll put the information out there. Anyone that wants to be added as a tester, we can add them to the test flight, and they can get an early access to what this is going to look like.
Cool. I love that, and thanks for sharing. This is really great.
Thank you.
Manu.
All right. Yeah. I can't think about user flow. I can't stop thinking about user flows here. It's really interesting. Just one thing to think about, maybe if you haven't already, is claiming. So if you have a map and you have a lot of entries, there's often there's a problem gathering data, and there's like already places that have data and recommendations or ratings, and you could import those, right? Or as Google does it, you can already start adding ratings before somebody has claimed that business, which generates a ton of more content than if you do it the other way around, where the user or the merchant has to actively register before being able to get reviews or anything else, right? So, I know this is probably not your first use case, but just claiming a business claiming a page that's already created, that maybe already has reviews, could enable both easier content generation from the user-generated content, as well as importing entries, right? You could import from Yelp or Google or whatever, and then let users claim, which technically is probably in user flow is a pain here, but it's something that is used in other platforms that do this kind of stuff, and I think it's worthwhile considering.
Yeah, so Kemal has kind of already answered my response. Manu, the issue with us is, or the prerequisite for us is that these are businesses or people that accept Bitcoin, right? This is a Bitcoin marketplace. So we can't just go around aggregating data because we don't know whether you accept Bitcoin or not. So for our purposes, it will be a little bit of a grinding effort to basically get content in for people who actually do accept Bitcoin. And
right, that makes sense. I guess then only the second point applies, right? That in other platforms, what you can do is you can start rating a business that you've been at without them having a claimed page, right? So that's a way of the user coming up saying this was a great restaurant, being able to rate that restaurant, for example, right? Without this first step, the merchant having to do something, which might not be worth it, but that's something.
So what you're saying is, let's say a restaurant accepts Bitcoin, but they've not really necessarily added their listing out here, and someone goes and pays with Bitcoin. They could add a location for that, saying, "Hey."
Right. This happened to me with Google before. So I basically had to claim a business that already had reviews, right? Because people already started doing this without the merchant actually having that business registered. So it's a user flow that exists there. It's just a thought.
Yeah.
Not sure if the user base here has that use case, it's highly specific. I'm not in depth there.
That's an interesting idea, John. Jonas, the point of issuing just a web view that can then be integrated into mobile wallets. I'd have to think about it in terms of how it interacts with the native. The idea is that we provide native interoperability with the wallet, and I feel like if you're just using a web view, that could lead to some security concerns and issues, and I'm not sure some of the things may or may not work. So that's something that we have to think about. But that isn't to say that a different version of it could also be available on the web. Like we said, we were thinking of a Chrome extension as well, but also just an aggregation site that could take information from all instances and list it out, and then that somehow could be used in other places. May not be intrinsic to the wallet app itself, which would make it reusable, I suspect.
It's one thing that I was going to share from my conversations with Patrick in Guatemala at Bitcoin Lake. Is really maybe two things worth thinking about. One is having a version of the map that is accessible to anybody with no authentication. And I mean, secondarily, people who accept Bitcoin who may not have that specific wallet, right? And so, if they're using some other wallet to receive Bitcoin, being able to get their PIN on the map. And then one thing I'll mention, it's not very obvious, I don't think, at least to me, but that would be interesting, is like you see communities who are using a wallet. So Bitcoin Lake is a good example. They use the Bitcoin Beach wallet. There's also a community in Peru that is using Bitcoin Beach wallet. And so as there's a thinking about monetization, it might be interesting to think about that revenue in terms of a splitting or a sharing or something that incentivizes sort of the growth of the wallet, sort of outside of the direct community which you're in, or at least that acknowledges that use case, which is like somebody like on the Bitcoin Lake team in Guatemala who is signing up merchants. Like, do they have the opportunity to be a moderator or an approver or something like that? So just again, it's kind of like a edge case, but worth thinking about, especially as we're seeing it pop up.
That's a great suggestion, because that's something that I hadn't thought of, because the Bitcoin Beach wallet itself is being used in different regions, and then each region then could be bifurcated in terms of who the moderator is, I guess. So they could have their own firewalled way of creating some sort of a pub sub model of content getting in there and then owning that content. Definitely worth pondering over, for sure. Well, these have been great questions and suggestions, and I definitely have my homework. I'll be looking at a lot of this stuff, and take these considerations to heart over the next few weeks, and then start. We'll publish a repository soon. Like I said, in a downstream environment somewhere first, and start at least writing some code while we work out some of the more finer details on how the implementations will work. Let's see where this goes. Unless anyone else has questions, we can give everyone their 8 minutes back.
Yeah, this has been great. I thank you to Prem, to your team, to the whole team over there, and to Bitcoin Design folks. I mean, what a great discussion. I think there's a lot of things to think about and talk about. And it looks like John has something to say as well.
And Jose too. Please go ahead. Jose, do you want to go first, since you raised your hand first? Or was that an accident again?
Oh. I was just trying to clap.
Okay, I think that was same with John as well. Yeah, John, we'll definitely reach out to you and try to get more input on how, because /tags in theory sounds like an absolutely amazing idea to me, and definitely native to the Lightning Network and what we're trying to do. So I would be very interested in learning more on how we could make this work. Of course, with the blessings of Nicholas and his team, to make sure that we're doing it the way it's kosher for the upstream environment.
All right. At that, I'll say one final thank you to everybody that joined and participated, and what I'll do is we'll be posting this video into the Bitcoin Design. We have the merchants channel. I don't know, Christoph, Patricia, if you think that maybe is the best place to communicate some of the outcome and follow-on chats for this, but you let me know, because it sounds like there's a lot. It sounds like that works. So we'll be in the merchants channel in Bitcoin Design. Prem, we'll get you in there as well, and looking forward to seeing how this develops over the coming weeks. So feel free to reach out, and we'll leave it there. Have a few minutes back.
Thank you so much, everyone. Appreciate it. Bye.
Yeah, thanks everyone. See you.
Bye.
Bye all. Thanks.